First time poster here. I live in a rural area in Tennessee, and this happened either the summer of 92 or 93, so I was a preteen. I still can see this in my mind like it happened yesterday. Like I said before, a rural area in Tennessee where we used to have serious issues with people dumping unwanted, worn out items and garbage down the beautiful hillsides and ravines. At that time, it was common to find illegal dumping sites everywhere because there was no bulk pickup offered by our one waste disposal monopoly. In this part of the state, the economic disparity is obvious. You have some of the poorest people and some multiple mansion and vacation home folks. My family fell somewhere in the upper middle class. Thinking Titanic, we would be either the lowest rung of first class or the very top of second class. Unfortunately, the majority would be in steerage or the coal bunker. Well, it was August in Tennessee, aka sun-scorching heat and enough humidity to make it slightly uncomfortable to breathe. Many describe it as swamp-ass capital of the state. Anyway, we had an extraordinary rare murder in our county. It was all that anyone was talking about. It was all you heard in our churches and beauty salons. The victim was largely unknown, a woman in her early 30s and nowhere near wealthy. I didn't know her, and nor did anyone. She had moved here less than a year ago and kept to herself and had not been reported missing. Then, just before our summer break came to an end, the lady was found at the base of a steep incline deep in one of our densely wooded areas by some folk out on a nature hike. There she was, found at the base of a large illegal dump on a windy dirt road that was barely wide enough for one vehicle. If you met another car, one would have to pull over so far so you're almost off the road entirely. Even creepier, the road was named Bone Road. Yeah. When she was found, she had lost everything from her neck up, but both her upper and lower areas were recovered. Her killer had not been caught. So, my mom was born and raised here, and was of a strong, yet goofy stock. She has always been my best buddy. She was loved by every student that she ever taught. Our friends adored my goofy mama, often telling me how lucky I was to have her. My dad was a pharmacist in our area, smarter than most, and happy to go fill a lost or forgotten prescription even late into the night. My dad isn't from here but is very well known because of his job. Everyone knows my mama because she and most of our huge family have been here ever since the ancestors settled here in the 1800s. The rest of her family lived in Middle Tennessee. On that day in August, we had been at a family reunion picnic at a beautiful, naturally made lake we lived near. Suddenly, scattered thunderstorms had popped up and brought our get-together to an end. It was just me and my mom, but on our ride home, we decided that we were Sherlock Holmes and Watson. We wanted to see the crime scene. I know, brilliant. My dad was at work and my brother was with a friend. This was 92 or 93, so no GPS, Alexa, Siri, or Google Earth, not even MapQuest. My dad was on our local school board and had been given a highly detailed map of the entire county. Since neither of us knew how to reach Bone Road, it was agreed the map would be our guide. We went home, grabbed the map, and set out like we were Magellan. Eventually we found the place and headed to the spot. Being the ignorant rubberneckers we were, we had just planned to drive past the stupid dump site. I can't explain how creepy this place was. A murder dumped in the middle of bumfuck Egypt, on a road that started with blacktop, translated to gravel, and then good old dirt. It was mid-afternoon, but the sudden rain on the August ground made the area steamy. Literal steam was emanating from the road, the fields, the woods, everywhere, just to add to the thrill of our folly. As we approached the location, there was a blind curve, making it impossible to see the place until you were right up on it. We rounded the corner. We saw that we were not alone. A very dirty man with his dirty black truck pulled over at the dump, just far enough to allow us to pass. Sure, Joe Dirt could have just been another looky-loo like us, but he gave off a creepy as fuck vibe, just standing by his truck, looking down into the dump. It wasn't a sheriff officer. We know all of our local authorities, and they had cleared the location a day or so before. Anyone could access this area. As we squeezed past his truck, he was standing on the passenger side of our car. I'm 12 or 13, I can't drive, so he was on my side as we passed, so close to him that I could see 2 teeth clear as day. He just smiled in this uber creeptastic, almost leering way. Not nice, not friendly. We got past and thanked the Lord that Mr. Two-Tooth hadn't followed us. We agreed we would reach the end of Bone Road and get the hell out of there. Oh, you know there's a but. We reached the end of Bone Road, ending at a field. Bone Road was a dead end. No pun intended. My mom said the words that I had been screaming in my head. Oh fuck. We had no choice. We had to do a 5-point turn and come back where we came from. Oh, I bet he's gone now. My mom's feeble attempt to soothe us both. Guess what? He was still there, still smiling his huge 2-tooth smile. Now, as my adult self reflected on this, he could have came after us, knowing we would have been cornered, but neither of us have ever been accused of being too rational. We made it out unscathed, of course, and my dad hit the roof when he heard a tapestry of idiocy our afternoon adventure was. But, you know, there's always a but. Days later, a newspaper heralded the good news. The murderer was caught. The woman had been killed by a boyfriend turned stalker. She had moved here from a town about 45 minutes away to get away from him, but he found her. He drove around with her body in the trunk before happening on the dump. Happily ever after? No. As we stared down this guy's mugshot, it was real. Mr. Two-Tooth was her killer. We never told my dad that part. Mr. Two-Tooth was convicted of first-degree murder and abuse of a corpse. He will die in the state prison system, serving life with no parole. Still, my mom and I promised we would never be so dumb again. We still have wild adventures, but not too freaky. Remote murder dump sites on unknown terrain, and with no one knowing where we were. We really could have met our literal dead end. It's an odd thing, knowing that we had been face to face with a brutal murderer, not once but twice. Well, I did have a super too close to call run-in with another murderer, but that will have to be another post on another day. Oh, but Mr. Two-Tooth, let's not meet ever again. Before I got my car in my freshman year of college, I would use Lyft to get to work pretty much every day during the summer. During the winter and fall, I just walked, even at night. And in all of those Lyft cars and drivers, I've never had any noticeable encounters. I've probably been in a couple hundred by now, and aside from an occasional political opinion and speeder, it was all fine. One day I ordered a Lyft car like normal. It'd be here in about 7 minutes. Cool. I walk outside a couple minutes early to go wait for my driver and see a vehicle that pretty much matches the description of mine sitting in my driveway. It was the same color, the same size, and unless you notice the little details, it pretty much looked the same. But my driver was still 2 minutes away. I chose to ignore him, thinking it was a funny coincidence and maybe he's a friend of a neighbor or something. But then he rolls down the window and looks at me, so I go up to talk to him. Maybe he's lost. And by the way, a different race entirely from the actual driver, so I know for sure it's not him, but a similar skin tone and age. He tells me he's my driver and pulls out his phone that has my profile, like how your driver has to make sure it's you. So in my naive and innocent teenage mind, I think to myself, oh, Lyft must have accidentally sent me 2 drivers. I tell him that he's not the driver I was told I would meet. Right as we were talking, my actual driver pulled up and rolled down his window. I explained the situation and said, I'll probably get in the first guy's car because he was here first. Then my actual driver says that I should probably go with whoever's on my phone. That sounded pretty logical to me and made sense. But before I could turn around and tell the other guy I was gonna go ahead and pick the other guy, he drove off. Tinted windows, by the way. It wasn't until I got into the car that my driver brought it to my attention how fucking weird that was. He told me that in the 10 years of him being a Lyft driver, nothing like that has ever happened to him or anyone he knew. Then it suddenly dawned on me about what might have just happened. The similar car appearance to my actual driver. The fact that he had all my info but I didn't have his. The fact that he was there a couple minutes early so that if I did get in, I wouldn't have been intercepted by my real driver. Everything. And I almost got into his car. I went to work and I was totally shaken up. I tried making a report to Lyft, but without any evidence or information other than a basic physical description, there wasn't much I could do. My Lyft driver said that he would go ahead and tell the story to some of the other driver friends on a social media forum so that they could spread the word. So that makes me feel a little better. That driver might have saved my life. I think about it a lot. And hey, my dad heard about it and got me a car. So at least I got something other than trauma. I traveled to Seoul for a week by myself back in 2018. Because I was still studying, and at the time doing a semester abroad in Kyoto, and Seoul is expensive, I decided to book a room in a hostel. It was supposed to be a mixed dorm for 6 people. Upon arrival, I found out that I was actually going to share a room with 5 men who were already staying at the hostel. At that point, I was still quite naive and didn't think much of it. Besides, the hostel was already fully booked. There was one guy from Japan, 1 Korea, 2 Chinese, and a German in my room. The German guy gave me weird vibes from the beginning, especially by the way he just stared at me, but I brushed it off because I'll be out and about all day anyway. Every day he would ask me if I wanted to hang out and go see the sights together, which I really like to do on my own. So I always came up with an excuse. One time, I accepted his invitation to explore Gangnam, and it was just awkward. We had very little to speak about besides small talk. When I get ready in the morning, as in apply makeup and do my hair, he'd just stand there and watch, saying nothing. I got annoyed and asked him if he didn't have somewhere else to be several times. He'd just shrug. Anyway, for the entire week I was weirded out, but I did my best to avoid him. One time, we ran into each other at a cafe in the city center, which I found strange because what are the odds? The other guys in my dorm were actually super nice. We even went out to dinner one night. Then, on my very last day, I woke up too early and drifted back asleep. The next time I woke up, it was to him sitting by my bedside, caressing my arm and shoulder. I immediately sat straight up and asked him what he was doing. Even though it was only my arm he was touching, I felt disgusted. I always thought of myself as being someone who would scream and curse at someone in this situation, but I was simply dazed and shocked. He then went on to confess his love for me, how he wanted to meet up when we got back home. I'm from Germany too, and how I was just so special. When I pointed out that he couldn't possibly be in love with me because it had only been a week, he insisted that he just knew and that he wanted to show me affection. At that point, I was just nauseous. Of course, he was leaving that morning too and offered to go to the airport together. I insisted that I was taking the later bus, and he thankfully left it at that. I couldn't wait for him to just go and leave me alone. I'm glad I didn't run into him in the airport, but at some point I just burst into tears because it had been exhausting to ward off his advances all week, and then gently tell him I wasn't interested in him after he was fucking touching me while I was sleeping. I don't even know how I managed to remain so calm and polite to him, but who knows how he would have acted if I had been aggressive. With hindsight, I think I should have insisted on switching rooms, but up until that very last morning, nothing had actually happened, and I would tell myself that maybe the poor guy was just awkward and didn't mean it. After this, I never doubted my instincts again. Hello everyone. I'm very new to posting on here, so please bear with me. I wanted to share my story that has occurred over the last 5 years. This story is about me, currently 20, and my stalker ex, currently 23. 2019 to 2021, the start of our relationship. 5 years ago, I met my ex. I'll call him Alex for my own safety. In early to mid 2019, I came across Alex's profile on Instagram and recognized him as a student who attended the same high school as me. I always thought he was attractive, so I followed him on Instagram, and to my surprise, he actually responded to one of my stories. We started messaging on Instagram back and forth, then both of us quickly found out that we liked each other. One night, when I had fallen asleep on the phone with Alex, I heard his voice coming from the phone whispering something like, "I would rape you," and other things along that manner. I thought I was hearing things, so I brushed it off, thinking I was just dreaming. Eventually, me and him started dating and going on dates. Everything went pretty well, except for the fact that when we would kiss, he would bite me extremely hard, to the point that it would make me bleed. I told him multiple times not to do it, but he would always continue. A couple months into dating, a girl had made a video on Instagram claiming he was a cheater, but he denied to me that he even knew this girl, and I believed him. 10 months of dating went by, and a friend sent me screenshots of him being active on Tinder. I immediately broke up with him after that. A couple months later, I started dating someone new. During this relationship with my new partner, Alex would blow up my phone with messages and calls. I decided to block him. He then started driving past my house every single day. At this point, I had started my first job, and he would eventually show up there too. I even moved jobs, and he found me there as well. Getting back together, 2021 to 2023. The situation eventually died down. Randomly, out of the blue, I got a flower delivery of pink roses. It had Alex's name on the card attached, but nothing written. Being the stupid 17-year-old senior in high school I was, I actually unblocked him and thanked him. He asked me to hang out, and I willingly went to hang out with him soon after we started texting. My 17-year-old self thought it would be cool dating a hot, well-known older boy, so I eventually fell back into Alex. After a couple times of hanging out, we started dating again. I eventually lost my V card to Alex, and we started regularly sleeping with each other. One day he texted me saying that he had a surprise for me, and then sent me an iCloud file. I opened the file, and it was a video of us having sex. I had no idea he had been recording us. I couldn't even consent, as I was 17 at the time, and he was 20. Again, stupid 17-year-old me stayed with him, regardless of the red flags. Eventually, our relationship became sexually and physically abusive. One night, he raped me while I was intoxicated and unconscious, and left bruises on my head and abdomen. A couple days after that, I decided enough was enough and broke up with him. The stalking, 2023 to 2024. Immediately following the breakup, he would constantly text and call me. He would beg me to see him. I kept denying him, but he kept going. He would threaten to come to my house in the middle of the night while I was sleeping. This happened for a couple months. During this time, I met someone new, and we started dating. I was having trouble with my mom, and my new partner asked me to come move in with him. Somehow, Alex found out where me and my new partner were living, so he started showing up at our place. We documented everything from our cameras and ended up filing a restraining order against Alex. We got granted a temp order until our hearing. Our hearing day came, and the judge extended the temporary order to let things cool down for 6 months. If he breaks the order, the judge will grant him a long-term order at the next hearing. Within days of extending the temp order, Alex violated it by parking in front of my house on multiple occasions. I called the cops multiple times, but they never even gave him a warning. One day, while I was working, I get a call from my local PD that Alex tried purchasing a firearm, which violates our order. They just warned him not to do that again and had to let me know for my safety. Obviously, knowing that your ex tried to purchase a firearm is scary itself. The following days, he would follow me to work and stand in front of my boyfriend's truck in the early hours of the morning. My current, fleeing 2024. He would start tailgating me on my way to work or swerve in front of me with his car. My boyfriend and I moved somewhere else but are still in the same city. Somehow, Alex still managed to find us. My boyfriend decided that if the cops weren't going to help us, then we would need to leave the state. We ended up packing everything in the middle of the night and driving a state over where my boyfriend's family lives. We've been here about 2 months. My boyfriend and I found good jobs and plan on leasing our own apartment soon. It's been peaceful for the most part. However, I still hear about what Alex does back home. He still tells everyone that we are together, still even posts pictures of me on Instagram. My story is still ongoing, and I've left out a lot of details. I'm a 19-year-old female. I was out to eat with my boyfriend at a place where it has a live show right next door. We decided to listen outside for some of the bands playing once we were done eating. It was around 9 p.m. at this time. Shortly after going outside, this girl came up to me and starts talking to me about all kinds of things. She has bright red hair, many piercings and tattoos. The first thing she did was compliment me about what I was wearing. I wasn't wearing anything special, a plain pink dress and Crocs. She seemed very friendly and continued the conversation with us. Mainly me though. I figured it was because I have piercings and a tattoo. I also kind of chalked it up as her being drunk and just overly friendly. Eventually, she asked me weird questions that I didn't really understand and I can't recall. Something along the lines of, "What's your purpose here?" or something like that. I just remember not understanding what she was asking me and just telling her where I worked because it sounded like that's what she was asking me. She says she works in a strip club in the same town and to come dance. She left abruptly after while texting on her phone and went over to this guy. Me and my boyfriend went to leave. I really thought nothing of it and we passed by them. After turning the corner, my boyfriend told me to check and see if we were being followed. I looked behind my shoulder and I didn't see anyone. We walked a little further and I looked back again and there was the guy. He was walking extremely quick and caught up pretty fast. He followed me all the way to my car, which was at least a mile away, until we got it and locked the doors. He was just a couple feet away from my car before he turned around. My boyfriend told me to start the car ASAP, and once we left, he told me that as we passed them, he heard the girl say to the guy something along the lines of, "She's a little nervous, but..." And he just had a bad vibe that I was going to be sex trafficked, or that they were going to try to pimp me out, maybe snatch me up, I don't know. It wouldn't have been very hard for him to do. He was at least double my weight, as I'm only 100 pounds. He was following with a lot of speed, and I mean, really, what was his motive? I'm at my parents' house for the summer. All the lights were off and the cars were missing from the driveway, despite 4 people being in the house. It's 7:30 at night, raining, and a black truck pulls up into the driveway. A young guy in normal clothes, black hoodie and sweatpants, knocks on the door. My 8-year-old sister answers the door, with their big dog barking upstairs. They asked her 3 things. Are your parents home? Can we hunt the deer on your property? Do your parents want to come hunting with us? She says yes, that her parents are at home, and goes to get our dad. The weird thing is, there is no deer ever on our land, and it's not deer season. My dad comes down to talk to them, and they switch up their story. Now they're saying that they want to hunt turkeys that are on our property. We do have turkeys sometimes wandering around our property, but not today. They told our dad all about the guns they had in their trunk, and there were many. They tell us how they came here from Alabama to hunt. They then asked if they can hunt on what's clearly our neighbor's property. My dad sent them away, but they drove by our house a couple more times after that. I don't know if this is that strange in New England, but from where I'm from, it definitely is. Also, it could just be my theater mind being overdramatic like always, but I thought might give it a shot. Worst case, I read a cool horror story based off of this encounter.